This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Yeah, Frank here, he's got his own billiard room.
Yes, it's what do you call it, Kramer?
It's a billiard room.
No.
The name.
The billiard. Not the billiards. It was. Come on, Rudy.
What?
Come on. We call it the
place to be.
The place to be. Yes, it's the place to be.
Then I shall be there.
This is the place to be here tonight.
Time to play the game.
Party people in the place to be. It's about that time.
Place to Be Nation, Scott Criscola and Justin Rosero. This is the Place to Be Podcast.
Very nice, Mr. Crisbola. Oh, I'm sorry, Dennis.
I think they might hit a shock wall.
Actually, it's being John Akiyama is a better version of it.
What do you think, Woodley? You can finally tell Grant Owens you found new music.
I'll tell you what, I am impressed.
Sharon Lois and Bram? Just get him a rinky-dinky-dink? Yeah. Just get him a rinky-dink.
Hey, Nate, man, this is pretty much a highlight of my life right now. I had no idea you were going to be here. I wanted to drive that freaking hoe train of my whole youth. You're the man.
And I thought he meant Nate Milton, the Godfather from Kings of Sport. Do you really think that's the Godfather?
Yeah, I did.
All you have to do is break out that fuck money.
I ate the pie. Watch your mouth, you scraggly Canadian.
That's a bit much. You, who murdered the dog with the sword, and I'm being a little too much.
Yeah, I like Big Dick myself. I was just curious. 5 years! 5 years! We've been doing podcasts. And we have this. This is trash.
To do worse than Josh Richard.
Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to the great episode of the one and only Place to Be Podcast. I am your co-host, Justin Rosero, coming to you live here on this Monday evening inside the Vintage Vault on the Mothership. And joining me, as always, the leader of the Terry Collins Fan Festival, and that is Scott Criscola. Scott, how are you?
I don't like anybody that wears those colors at the moment. Good evening, JR. Good evening, Place to Be Nation. Welcome to episode 447 of the Gold Standard. There's just nothing good going on right now in that entire franchise, and other teams who are playing better can say it's easy to say another team's fan is overreacting when your team is doing great, but it's not good right now. I mean, when the players are calling the shots in the organization and the organization just lets them do it, that's just a problem. But in any event, yeah, JR, good to be with you as always. And we are in the Vintage Vault as we dive into our official 1986 schedule in our home office, as we're on 33rd Street, and we are not alone this evening, JR. For our first house show of the year, we bring in our house show aficionado with us. Who is it, JR?
Yeah,
everybody knows who it is.
Your team specializes in gross incompetence. His specializes in gross cheating, sign stealing and juicing and roiding and everything else. And that is Kelly Nelson, fan of the Toronto Blue Jays. Kelly, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Happy New Year, gentlemen.
Yes, welcome to 1986. How old are you at this point, Kelly?
I would have been 8.5 years old.
Okay. Scott?
76. No. I was 12.
Yeah, it's a little bit younger than I thought. It's kind of disappointing. And I would have just turned 5. So there you go.
Math! All right. Anyway, yes, we are deep into 1986.
By the way, I always screw it up, but Kelly is the Buddy Roberts of the Freebirds for us. Is that where we
Buddy
go
Jack, baby.
Okay, good.
Buddy Jack.
Nailed it.
Do you have the hair cream with you there? Because if you get a bad grade, we're gonna just rub it all over Josh Donaldson until his beard falls out. Anyway, Kelly, always a pleasure, sir. It's good to have you on tonight. And tonight, as we said, it's our second show of the calendar year. Of course, JR, you and I last week did the Saturday Night's Main Event. Mm-hmm. But tonight we are in our haunt, so let's dive right in. Our date is January 27th, 1986, from, of course, the home office, Madison Square Garden, in New York City. A sellout over 20,000. What's the official number? I don't have it in front of me. I think it's 20,355, I think.
20,225.
25. So sellout, so that means They include that, and I'm sure usually this. I think somebody said, I was listening to one of our earlier shows, that if it goes over 15, that means they use the felt forum. So felt's probably full tonight as well. The other arena being used tonight, and it tells you how jacked this show is, courtesy of our good friend Mr. Cawthon on the history of WWE.com. The B team, and this was definitely the B team, because obviously the only champion not with us this evening is our Intercontinental Champion, Mr. Tito Santana. He's probably in this arena, although Graham does not mention it. The Hara Arena, JR, another future haunt for Monday Night Raw from Dayton, Ohio. And all it said in Graham's site was, included Don Morocco.
There you go.
So clearly, Parv would have been at the Garden and not in Dayton, Ohio. So that's it. So that's all that was at this. So that's where the other team, the other roster was. They were in Dayton, Ohio on this Monday evening. Your announcers are Gorilla Monsoon and back for our second show of the year, Jesse the Body Ventura. Of course, he was with Vince on Saturday Night's Main Event. JR, the rest of the report.
Hulk Hogan is our WWF champion, 735 days into his reign. Tito Santana, 205 days into his reign as Intercontinental Champion. The Dream Team now at 156 days as Tag Champs. And the Fabulous Moolah, 63 days as Women's Champion. After, of course, she had screwed Wendy Richter and sent her packing. And then to get some notes from Mr. Jarvis here. This is what's gone down since our last visit to MSG on December 30th. On January 11th, Championship Wrestling, we see the makeover of Adrian Adonis. No longer wearing the leather jacket, no longer a tough guy. Adonis came out on Piper's Pit with bows in his hair and states he's tough enough to wear whatever he wants. He hands his leather jacket to Piper, saying he doesn't need it anymore. And that would be the leather jacket that Piper made part of his outfit for many years to come. So,
And he probably wears leather now in private, according to Gorilla. We'll get more to that conversation later in the show.
It's an interesting
because they get very detailed later on during that portion of the show.
The WWF ran a show in Boston on 1/11, headlined by Roddy Piper and Bob Orton versus Paul Orndorff and Bruno Sammartino. The heels won by countout. And on January 18th episode of Championship Wrestling, the first rumors of relationship between George Steele and Miss Elizabeth were introduced, stemming from their interaction on Saturday Night's Main Event. Announced that the next Boston show would have a Roddy Piper, Bruno Sammartino steel cage match. Anything, since we didn't get to that one, we want to talk about that one, but anything about that 1/11 show in Boston, Kelly, with that tag?
I don't think, I'm pretty sure I haven't seen the Boston version of that tag, but I've seen the Spectrum. They did 2 matches there, and the second one being a cage match with those teams. The footage was really rough. Maybe there's a better quality version out there now. But it's worth seeing, the cage match for sure. Yeah.
Very good. And that's our report.
All right. This show is going to be one that we'll all remember. So, and definitely not the Hara Arena. All right, so let's dive in. By the way, 7, as you mentioned, JR, the number of days that Hogan's been champion, we're 4 years past the 2-year anniversary. 2 years as world champion. Pretty impressive, and definitely still over, as we will find out later this evening. But let's dive in, JR. Match 1. Newcomer to the promotion. We've seen him once already. We're seeing him again against maybe slightly better competition. Mm-hmm. A Garden stalwart during our first 12 months here at the Garden, JR. Who do we got?
That is dangerous Danny Spivey taking on Rene Goulet. Gorilla and Jesse open things up right out of the gate, bickering about Hulk Hogan's hectic schedule as we get to the ring and how it could play into events coming up later tonight. Spivey still working his way up that ladder, building up his resume. Goulet gets a good round of boos as Gorilla calls him the Michael Jackson of the WWF. Mm-hmm. Jesse puts over Spivey's size, and Goulet stalls, disrobing and putting on his glove, which Gorilla, as always, dissects. They finally lock up with Spivey shoving him into the corner before breaking. The size difference here I thought was pretty neat visual when they kind of do that wide shot to seeing how much taller Spivey was. And Danny does get a clean shot at Goulet, trapped up top, but doesn't take advantage. Goulet escapes. Goulet keeps taking him down with a headlock, but Spivey twists him into a head scissors each time. Goulet works out of the head scissors into a headstand, but in a pretty funny spot. Spivey just releases the hold, sneaks around, and kicks Goulet down as he just stood there on his head. Spivey plants Goulet with an awkward shoulder block and then levels him with a dropkick to the chest. Spivey grabs a side headlock and maintains control until Goulet works free and buries a knee. Goulet misses an elbow and goes back to the headlock and continues to mess with the Frenchman. Goulet finally finds an opening and levels Spivey with a jumping clothesline. Goulet goes to work, stomping on the gut and thinks about the claw, but goes to a chinlock instead. Goulet chokes and punches away, eventually clubbing Spivey to the floor. Gorilla notes that Goulet has lost 25 or 30 pounds, but hasn't lost as much power as you would expect. Spivey comes back in, and Goulet meets him with the claw hold off the middle rope, which Gorilla wonders if it'll be successful against Spivey. Spivey powers out but misses a charge and hits the corner hard. Goulet slams him down and gets a 2 count on a knee drop, then goes back to the claw. Goulet releases and puts Spivey down with a shoulder block, but feels the pain as well. Goulet hits the claw for a 3rd time as Spivey gets out of it and mounts his comeback, slinging Goulet around the ring, rattling him with an atomic drop for 2. Goulet goes to the eyes, but Spivey shrugs it off and hits a bulldog for the win, and a really big pop. Now, this is fine, but again, as usual, we get the Goulet Claw Festival, which we just, like, if you just varied it just a little bit, some of these matches would be so much better, but just that over-reliance on that stupid claw. Spivey, I thought, looked solid. Okay opener. Half star. I thought pretty standard. I can't say Spivey's been super impressive thus far, but, he's working his way up, and again, Goulet is Goulet. So, what do you think, Scott?
Well, your match length, 12:50. I also gave it a half star. Pretty standard fare. I agree with you, JR. I feel like at this point, Rene Goulet kind of has a template for his house show matches, regardless of who he's facing, whether it's a small guy or a big guy. And he usually leads up to, the long claw. Gorilla and Jesse have very interesting chemistry on these, on a lot of these house shows, particularly early on here, because Jesse, other than when, right now it's just Hogan is his vitriol. Other than that, and I noticed it in a lot of these matches on this show, he is a lot more subdued. I mean, he still talks kind of heel talk about, Spivey should be a little, meaner in the ring and so forth, but he's not like that out of control, ridiculous heel, which we will get later, because like I said, the one guy he does have heel vitriol for is Hogan.
But I think he has been doing it on the Saturday Night Main events, though. So do you think it's just the atmosphere? I think
it's the atmosphere. Yeah. I think it's the atmosphere, and I think it's Vince, because Vince is easy to pick on because he's a schlub. Mm-hmm. But Gorilla's different. Like, he has respect for Gorilla in that sense. Like, he has the jabs at Gorilla, but he doesn't talk down to him like he talks down to Vince. You know what I mean?
I think it's. I think it has more to do with the spotlight. I think Saturday Night's Main Event is a brighter light, and he's more amped up. And on these shows, it's a very just kind of lax atmosphere overall. So I think the Gorilla Vince thing plays into a little bit. I would say I think it's more to do with just the situation. These are just two guys almost sitting like at a bar just watching wrestling versus Saturday Night's Main Event is much more of a presentation.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that, but what I'm saying is I like it. It brings a different dynamic for two guys who have very obviously differing thinking of heels and faces, and Jesse still injects his little jabs in, and of course you have endless inside innuendos and double entendres and side jokes and that kind of thing. But it's just this match in particular, and it continues through the whole show. It's just a different dynamic I really enjoyed. Between the two of them, the crowd and they were hot even for this, for Spivey. So they were ready tonight. I mean, Christmas break's over, time for the new year. Everybody's pumped. So it was a great crowd, and they get better as the show progresses. But the match as a whole was pretty standard. I also gave it a half star, and Spivey has not been stellar early on. I think the big man kind of thing has not been effective for him, particularly against some of these jobbers he's been facing. So I think he needs to. I think being a teammate with Rotundo was one thing, but although I don't even think that happens yet. When it does happen, it helps a little bit, but it's evident that he's not entirely alone as of yet. Probably should not be alone, because obviously he can't handle himself quite yet in a big match situation. So I only gave it a half star. What do you think, Kelly?
I liked it a shade more than you guys. I mean, I thought it was far from the worst match we're going to be discussing this evening.
That's always praise on these shows.
and for an opener, it's probably one of the better openers we've seen, actually.
Again.
Exactly. As far as Spivey goes, I think a lot of the fans, especially in a place like New York and MSG, would have seen him as the obvious Barry Windham clone, attempt at replacing him, like right down to, of course, the look, but also the Bulldog finisher.
Yes.
So they saw right through that. And he was, he's a poor man's Barry Windham, that's for sure. I thought Goulet had, some pretty good heel shtick going for him. So that was something. But there was a lot of boring chants. That's the ongoing theme of the MSG shows, is the fans, is the minute, like the second a headlock is even hinted, the boring chants come out. They're so quick to turn on the boring chants. Goulet was also in control most of the way, so that didn't make Spivey look good at all. If he was going to be anything special, he shouldn't have any trouble really with Rene Goulet.
I've noticed that a lot. I've noticed that a lot with these guys that are making their early inroads in the WWF. We've seen it over the last few house shows as well, that these guys are debuting, and they don't get I don't have to say they have to be squashes, but how about an extended squash where it's 6 or 7 minutes and they just dominate the whole thing? So many times these guys are just getting eaten up through most of this match. Like we saw with King Tonga, we've seen it with Spivey twice now. There's been more than one that have debuted, seem like they're being prepped for a decent run, and then they just get mauled for 7 minutes of a 10-minute match to open the show.
Yeah, well, and you often hear the veterans talk about how someone like a Rene Goulet would just eat up a young guy if he didn't like him, not give him anything. Like Spivey shouldn't be selling that much. He's pretty big, shouldn't be selling like that for a much smaller guy like Goulet, in my opinion. The comeback, though, was actually pretty decent, and the crowd was hot at the end. So that's another factor in me giving it a 1 star instead of a half star like you guys.
The Rene Goulet fanboy.
That's right.
gotta stand up, for my fellow Canadians.
The Michael Jackson of Western Canada.
Well, it's funny because I've actually developed my own tiering for Goulet at this point, because now we've seen so many goddamn matches of his that I know he can do better than this, and I actually factor that into my my grading now, because I'm I've seen Goulet when he's was the Morales match, and there's a couple others where they actually weren't too bad, and so you can kind of tell when he's more mailing it in with stuff like this, and that affects my grading. I never thought I'd get to the point where I have tells on Rene Goulet, but it just that's where I'm at. I'm I know when there's a decent Goulet match or a real dog shit Goulet match, and this was closer to the dog shit in my mind than the better stuff we've seen from him.
That's great.
Speaking of dog shit, let's move on to the next match. Well, some of us may not think it is, but I certainly did. Next up, we have another guy who we always seem to think is ready for a big push, and then extended long injuries. Maybe he's a trainer with the Mets. I don't know. But taking on another Rene Goulet-ish kind of guy. Even though he's Kelly's favorite athlete. What do we got, JR?
George Wells, who, yes, I do believe it was his cat that caused that eye injury. That's what I'm sticking with. It scratched him. Taking on Iron Mike Sharp, Canada's number 1. Wells finally back in action. He's also sporting a crop top number 69 football jersey, which I thought was quite the interesting statement.
I didn't notice that.
Oh, I definitely did, yeah.
It was an interesting statement by Georgie Boy here to wear that one. Sharp is in his usual MSG card slot here, second from the top. Iron Mike jaws with the fans and dodges Wells for a few minutes. Wells is bulked up quite a bit. I don't know if you guys noticed that as well. Looking a little bit chunkier than he was in the past. They lock up to a stalemate. Wells grabs a hammerlock, but Sharp gets to the ropes. Sharp lands a back elbow and a shoulder block, but Wells comes back with a pair of drop kicks to send Sharp hard to the floor and into the barricade. Sharp comes back and grabs a side headlock as Gorilla reveals that WrestleMania 2 will be on April 7th, 1986, and we'll get more on that as we move along. Wells battles in the hold for a bit and eventually powers out. And Jesse says Sharp reminds him of the guy that played Superman, and that leads to him and Gorilla spending minutes trying to remember Christopher Reeve's name. Interesting conversation there. The guy who plays Superman. Wells lands a crescent kick, get a pair of drop kicks followed by a pair of arm drags to send Sharp to the floor. Sharp comes back in and they line up for a test of strength, but Wells slaps him in the face instead. Wells slugs Sharp outside, and when Iron Mike comes back in, he goes to the eyes to grab control. Sharp kicks and punches away, knocking Wells outside and keeping him there by hammering him whenever he gets close. Sharp heads out and runs Wells into the table and then into the barricade. Wells finally lands a right hand and uppercut to knock Sharp back inside. He heads in as well. Wells works Sharp over but misses a hard charge in the corner and fell outside to the floor. Sharp follows out, smashes Wells with a chair, but Wells is able to shove Sharp into the post. Both men are out of it, and Sharp is able to get back in the ring first, where he unlaces his forearm pad and chokes Wells with it. Sharp pitches Wells back inside, but Wells fires up and kicks Sharp to the mat before laying in punches and headbutts and chokes. Wells gets a 2 count on a crossbody, but gets shoved to the floor again. Sharp comes out, and Wells bashes him with a chair to a huge pop as the bell rings. Wells chucks Sharp into a row of chairs. The Gorilla says the ref let this one get out of control. The two men stop fighting as we find out the match ended in a draw, and I thought it was actually pretty solid. I thought there was some good near falls and brawling. Sharp matches always seem like they're about to end, like 5 times, but somehow keep going. Like every time I think it's over, he either survives a 2 count or he climbs back in the ring, and we almost like the match like resets. It's like his matches are like 4 mini matches put into one sometimes, and that's not even necessarily a bad thing because they've actually been okay. And I actually went a 1.5 stars on this. I thought it was pretty well worked, and I liked the teases, and I thought the offense overall was pretty good by both guys. What'd you think, Kelly, in this one?
Yeah, I gave it the same grade, a 1.5 stars. I thought it was an okay little match. It built well throughout. We got a hot start with Wells right off the bat, sending Sharp outside, and Sharp took a big bump. He took a lot of big bumps in this match, actually. Then the headlock and the boring chance, but they did recover from that. And Wells had Master G on his tights, which was his Mid-South name, where he was supposed to be the heir to JYD, and I guess he
wasn't.
He obviously wasn't. But he hadn't bothered to change his tights. That's the first time I've noticed him wearing Master G tights. Not that I've seen a ton of George Wells in WWF matches, but anyway, it's always funny when a wrestler has tights that refer to like his previous stint in another territory. Like, for example, Harley Race later in 1990 when he goes to WCW, he has the King tights on.
So I wonder what the 69 jersey was a reference to then. His previous career in porn, or was it something?
Yeah, who knows? He had some time in the CFL, was an all-star, got sidetracked into porn for a few years, and then wound up in wrestling. He had a very varied career in life, George Wells. And of course, like George Wells, you're not expecting much from him at all. At least I wasn't. So that's another plus. We had brawling on the outside. We had chair shots. Just some nice spots here and there. And I mean, it was a draw, a time limit draw, but it didn't feel that long, which is another plus. It didn't drag. And, I came into these reviews hating Iron Mike Sharp, and I'm kind of almost turning a corner on the guy. I hate to say it. It's for years I just despised him, but his MSG matches anyway have been surprisingly good.
So we'll see if that. When I see him come out, I'm like bored, and then as the match, like I keep wanting the match to end, and it keeps going, and I'm like, you know what? This really wasn't that bad. It's like I never expect to or want to like it, and then I just keep kind of getting sucked in as he goes.
Yeah, he I guess obviously he was around a lot of the territories. He learned some tricks, and he knew how to work a 1.5 star to 2 star match. So not too bad.
Well, I did find what theme they were going to play for George Wells if he was in Mid-South. Maybe that's why he had the 69 jersey.
Yeah, there we go.
Fuck those. Hey, we finally got to fit it on a show, JR. There you go.
Oh, we fit it on a show before.
Yeah, no, we have. There you go. I'm not nearly as enamored with this match as you guys were. I gave it a 0.5 star. I thought it was
enamored is a high. I mean, we didn't give it 4.5 stars. Enamored is a little strong.
It's still a 1.5 star and a half. Well, I guess I mean,
for an MSG show, it's a high rating. That's,
yeah, I didn't like it at all.
I
thought it was a lumbering mess. I thought they kind of fell over each other a lot. I don't know. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
Sounds like you and Green over there.
Maybe it was 18
lumbering mess falling all over each other.
Just like you and Jeff. I think this match just went on way too long. You talk about matches that are too long. 1830s. Of all matches on this card that you made a time limit draw, you'd pick this one.
Oh, did they say 15 or 20 again on this one? Was it like last time? Remember they fucked it up in the last one?
Yeah, I don't think they said anything because at first I think they got confused. I think they thought that it was a DQ. I think they thought it was a double count.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then also a DQ because he uses the chair, so the whole thing was kind of confusing.
No, I mean the official time is 18:37, so I don't know, but it definitely went about 12 minutes too long. I don't think we really needed 18 minutes of this. And I'm not going to say that time needed to be added. Well, I mean maybe it could have in other places, unless you wanted to just change this booking to two other guys and make a time limit draw to something else, but I didn't like it. I thought it was cumbersome and
it's the sharp. But it's become the sharp thing, right? This is like the second draw we've seen.
Yeah.
Again, it seems like his match is always about to end, then they go again, then they're about to end, and then it goes again. So it's almost like 3 acts of his matches. Like it's like a full-fledged 3 mini-match series within the match. It's odd, but yeah, I mean, this is becoming a trend with Mike Sharp. So it's almost like they saw enough in him to go broadways, but not enough in him to actually give him a push. It's kind of an odd spot he's in.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's been in some other halfway decent draws. This was just not. This was terrible. And I think Georgie Porgy, I think they realized that they're not going to get really much out of him. He probably got yelled at for the Master P tights, which didn't even look like tights. I mean, they literally looked like football pants that had something stitched on them. They didn't even look like real. And he definitely got a little beefy over his 1985 controversial.
Did you say Master P?
Did I say Master P? Isn't that what it was? What was it, Kelly?
Master G.
I like Master P.
Make him say, oh.
Now, if he had that theme, maybe this match would have been halfway decent, but
no. I can see Iron Mike Sharp singing rap is crap, man.
I agree with that. All right. So, yeah, I didn't like it. I gave it a half star. And your official time is 18:37. Our next match is definitely one that should not have been even on here, much less long, but we have a MSG debut here. Against a stalwart. Well, not really a stalwart. I can't remember the last time we've actually seen him at the Garden. Maybe these guys have both debuted. I don't think we've seen the other guy at the Garden either. Who do we got, JR?
Sorry, I was muted. So here we go. Up next
for our next match.
I didn't want to talk about
No limit soul.
No comment.
There you go. You want it? You got it. George Wells' multiple themes here from tonight. Ted Arcidi, born in Buffalo, New York in 1958, family well-educated. Mother was a nurse, father was a doctor. Ted decided to go against the trend in the family and left dental school to pursue powerlifting. On March 3rd, 1985, Arcidi became the first man to bench press over 700 pounds in an officially recognized competition. On that day, he lifted 705.5 pounds to set the record. After several years of powerlifting, he caught the eye of Vince McMahon and was signed to a WWF contract in late 1985. Oh, yeah. His stint in the WWF was a short one until February of 87. Of course, we'll cover him as we move forward. But when he does leave here, he spends some time in Stampede, in World Class, billed as Mr. 705, not Master P, in reference to his powerlifting record. Arcidi would also continue to powerlift after leaving wrestling, setting another world record of 718.1 pounds in September of 1990. Would later become a strength coach for Triple H in China. Got them in touch with Killer Kowalski, who trained them in pro wrestling. So I can do 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon there with between Ted Arcidi and Scott Crisgolo. Tie it all together through Triple H, but...
Hey,
Mr. G, na. All right, Tiger Lee Chung, real name Masanori Taguchi. Did I say it wrong again?
Tiger Chung Lee.
I thought you actually did it on purpose.
No, why am I dyslexic with this one name? Something has broken my head when it comes to Tiger Chung Lee.
You're gutted. You're gooted.
Ah, God. Debut for Japan Pro Wrestling, and I knew it as I said it. In August 1968, When JWA folded in 1972, came to the United States, began working as a heel under his real Korean name, Kim Duck. He toured NWA territories, striking up a feud in Mid-Atlantic with the Mid-Atlantic champion Wahoo McDaniel. Joined up with Dirty F in 1983, remained there until 88. Leaving Dirty F, he would tour internationally in Puerto Rico, Mexico, and Japan before semi-retiring in 2001. So here we go. Big MSG debut for Ted Arcidi against the infamous jobber Tiger Chung Lee. Fink announces him as the strongest man in the world. Gorilla says he's world champ in the bench press at 705. Arcidi is massive, as Gorilla says Tiger is a martial arts expert. Arcidi overpowers Tiger off the bell, shoving him to the mat a pair of times. And Jesse says Arcidi has tons of potential for a rookie, and if one of these managers gets a hold of him, he could be a star. Tiger fails at a slam attempt, and Arcidi easily hoists him up and slams him. Tiger goes to the eyes and stomps and clubs away, and then uses thrusts and kicks as the crowd tries to rally Ted. Tiger ducks his head on a whip, and Arcidi boots him in the face and pulls down the straps. Arcidi shoves Tiger to the corner, but Tiger catches him with a stiff shot to drop him to his knees. Tiger lands a chop, but Arcidi no-sells it and hits a backdrop and grabs bear hug for the win. Sloppy fucking mess of a match here. Both guys suck. Crowd was into Arcidi, at least, and it was kept short, so that's a positive, and we didn't get the, like we talked about last match, or 2 matches ago. It's not like Arcidi got eaten up by Tiger here, but Arcidi's terrible. I went the dud, as you would expect on this one, but not very fun, Scott.
Ted Arcidi. No. Whoever thought, and I know Vince is big on these powerlifting guys, but this guy could barely balance himself. He's so misshapen. I don't know who anybody thought this guy could be a good wrestler is out of their fucking minds. You can just look at him and go, this guy's going to be a disaster of a worker. I mean, it's just what a mess. I mean, he can't even. I mean, he's like a weird action figure. It's not good. The whole thing sucks. And Tiger, Lee, Tiger Chung, Tiger Lee, doesn't matter what 3 words his name is. He could be better with better competition, but sadly he got dragged down to this shit fest. So, yeah, there's nothing much more to say. I mean, it's a disaster. Vince probably went, oh, this could be a good heel for Hogan. No, he can't. He's nothing. He's fucking trash. Sadly, we'll probably see many more.
Give me your headshots now.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Oh, everything's fine. Yeah. Kelly, save us.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Junior Mr. Universe Award is completely sewn up here with Arcidi. Wow. I don't think I've seen very many Ted Arcidi matches.
Well, you're not missing much.
No, I mean, good Lord. Those strikes were just so light. And even, Monsoon had to mention it. Otherwise, it was I would look a fool if I didn't mention how light they were. So, yeah, Monsoon called him out for it. The crowd started kind of whistling and hooting. They were like, who the fuck is this guy? Just a total, it was obvious to them. Obviously just in there for his look. No talent whatsoever in the ring. Yeah, this was crap. Thank God it was quick, but I still gave it a dud. It was just so shitty. And I like Tiger Chung Lee. I mean, he's not bad, but poor guy. Somebody had to be sacrificed to Ted Arcidi, I guess. But yeah, what a horrible match.
Yeah, there was nothing was going to save him. Nothing was going to save him. It didn't matter who you put in there. It's going to be a harbinger of things to come. I don't think anybody on this roster is going to be able to save him. Next up, our first match that really gets the crowd going after the last couple didn't. A continuing storyline and gets the crowd on their feet. JR, who do we got? I don't think either of these guys are gangster bitches.
It should have been. I don't want.
Maybe Paul Orndorff.
He could be a gangster bitch. Him and Big John Studd go at it here. Good stuff as the feud between Orndorff and Bobby Heenan's crew rolls on. And the crowd is fucking bananas for Orndorff as he plays to them and points at Studd. And Heenan, Orndorff is ripped, looks primed for a major run as he enters here. I mean, he doesn't look like a star. Tremendous heat on Heenan and Studd. Orndorff has a cast on, and Jesse wonders if it makes the bounty easier to cash in for Studd. Scarilla says the forearm injury is similar to Orton's. Orndorff chases Heenan around and gets caught by Studd at the bell, but Orndorff comes firing back with right hands, rocking the big man and sending out the ring to regroup as the crowd goes insane. Studd comes back in and clubs away, and then catches Orndorff on a cross body block and rams him into the corner. Studd knocks him to the floor and follows out with a forearm blow and then shoves him back inside. Studd goes to the top rope, but Orndorff catches him with a shot to the gut as he comes down. Studd punches him back into control and then hits an atomic drop and then pushes Paul to the floor. Studd follows again and runs him hard into the post and then back inside. Studd keeps bringing the heavy blows and tries to chuck Orndorff outside, but Paul skins the cat back in and loads a flurry before cutting Studd down. They end up back outside where Orndorff scoops Studd up, shoves him inside, and clobbers him with the cast off the top rope, followed by a forearm cast shot as well. Orndorff hoists Studd up for a slam, but Heenan comes in, pulls Studd down to draw the DQ. Orndorff levels Heenan after the match and kicks him to the floor. This was red hot. Tons of fun and kept quick and effective. Orndorff looked like a beast with the slam attempts, and the crowd was just out of their minds in this one. Fun outing for both men. The great feud just keeps rolling on. I could not believe the crowd for this. They were just crazy, especially for Orndorff's entrance. I went 2 stars on this one. And it's not that long of a match. I mean, it just checked in at, 5:26. So
5:26.
It was a lot of fun. And like I said, the crowd really helped make it. What did you think, Kelly?
Yeah, I gave it 2 stars as well. Yeah, the crowd, it was all about the crowd. So hot. I mean, when people discuss Paul Orndorff's career, they rarely mention how over he was as a babyface in 85, really 86. Jeez, he was just it was incredible. This was like Hogan Rock in Toronto levels right here of just heat. They loved Orndorff as the babyface.
Do you think part of it's because WrestleMania 2 is one of the few, I don't know, for many years it was kind of one of the few snapshots we had of this first face run, and
right.
And it's just kind of not good there, So I wonder how, for me, that was a big part of it. I wonder how many just saw that and just assumed it was kind of a milquetoast run.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because most of the big matches for him were on the house shows that not a lot of people saw. They saw the Saturday Night's main events. Oh, I mean, that you had the match with Piper at a Saturday Night's main event. But yeah, the WrestleMania 2 match is often considered, one of the worst openers in WrestleMania history. But yeah, he's red hot. They love, when you're a baby or when you're a heel and you turn babyface, that can make you red hot. And he had that feud right away with Piper, and he just kept going. And having Heenan feuding with the whole family, just more heat. And this was a big match for the time. Studd and Orndorff, that was huge. So the crowd just totally loved it. Yeah, it was short. Maybe, yeah, it definitely could have been a bit longer because they didn't really get going. But considering the direction they're going, and Studd wasn't going to eat a pinfall or anything or really have any major loss here. So it was just what it was. But yeah, 2 stars. That's definitely at least a half star just for the crowd alone, making this one seem like just a major match from the time. And I'd never seen this before. And yeah, it was cool. Just a great snapshot of the era and how over Orndorff was. And Studd as a heel was super over. And Heenan, of course. Yeah, it was really cool to see this one.
I actually really liked it. I gave it 2.5 stars. The crowd was red hot, as they would be for the rest of the show. I think this match almost was the catalyst that kicked them off for what, they were going to eat up everything from this point forward, or most of it anyway. Yeah. Which, it's funny, JR, you bring up the whole WrestleMania 2 thing, because I asked myself, should they have done to with this character what they would do in 8 months? Because you think to yourself, the way they are now, you feel like they're pushing him to something that's going to come bigger in a few months. Now, again, you're kind of screwed because of who your champion is, and I think this is the first. Orndorff is the first of what would be many opportunities for another babyface to take the ultimate level, and sadly can't because there's a guy in front of them that you're not going to move. So unfortunately, and you're right, Kelly, nobody saw these great moments of Orndorff because they were all locally. And you didn't see it on as many Cindy's as you wanted to, and then we'll get into it when we get to WrestleMania 2, what the hell happens. But that was also, I think, a product of the lousy production. And you don't say that much about WWF, but WrestleMania 2 left a lot to be desired in that department. The ending was not great, but I mean, I don't know what else they could have done. I might have even had, maybe this is another reason, I maybe had Orndorff win this match. So Studd loses. Whoopie-doo. It's Studd. And I love Big John Studd, but so he loses. Whoopie-doo. I think the clean win for Orndorff would have really done wonders for him. And the fact that there's all these DQs and countouts and everything, I think kind of takes away from what could have been more.
But did that matter, though, at the time?
Sure. Beating Studd clean? How could it not?
No,
Absolutely.
I mean, well, yeah, but I mean not having a clean finish. Like, I don't think it was, like, looked at as, like, a bad thing at the time. It just happened so often that...
Yeah.
No, but it wouldn't have hurt. I mean, sometimes it's just overused. I mean, too much
but
protecting.
Who would have saw it? I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it's not that big of a deal in the long run. Like, it's... All right, he wins this in MSG. Like, so then he's going to beat him around the horn. I mean, so if it's going to matter here, it's going to matter everywhere else. To me, it just... I don't think it made a huge difference long term. I think the point was the crowd's super into him. He gets his hands on Heenan, which is what everyone really wanted to see anyway. Heenan's always there backing up Studd. Like, to me, that stuff mattered more, the character parts, than if it was like a clean pin or not.
I mean, I could have had, I mean, maybe then have this match on the Saturday Night's Main Event then. I mean, the whole point is if whatever the long-term plan was for Orndorff, beating Studd here on a national, moderately, I would say, yes, regional stage, but it is MSG, and people see that even in print. Doesn't hurt. But in any event, the match itself was great. Orndorff's over anyway, so it's not, I'm not saying it hurt it. But unfortunately, as we'll see many times over the next 5 years, any of these baby faces there's a ceiling. And when fans realize what the ceiling is, they lose it. So... But for this moment, Orndorff is crazy over. He had the cast. It was pretty cool. And Bobby obviously was over. And the scenario was fine. Unfortunately, as we'll see over the next few months, I don't think they really knew what to do with Orndorff once he was as hot as he was as a babyface. So, but he gets a win by DQ in 5:26 in a pretty good little sprint. I liked it a lot. I gave it 2.5. Next up,
quick question, Kelly. Like, what do you usually think Orndorff's ceiling at this point could have been? Like, I mean, obviously we know where it's headed. Would you have kept him beyond that? Do you think he had a shelf life as being this over, especially since he wasn't going to ever supplant Hogan as a top face? Like, what do you think? Did they do enough to take advantage, or do you think using this being red hot to fuel what happens later was enough?
Well, I mean, the match in Boston with Bruno against Piper and Orton was brought up. So he did main event a lot of house shows, first against Piper and then in tags and stuff. So they used him a lot as a top baby face. And I was going to bring this up because I was wondering when do you think they decided to do the big feud with Hogan? I want to say that was probably something that was pretty long-term planned ahead. Back in those days, they especially did really long-term planning. So I think that was always something that they wanted to do. And of course, yeah, it's great when the fans totally embrace somebody and he breaks their heart and turns on him and betrays Hogan. And it was such a great angle. Like, you can't, say that they should have went too long with him as a babyface. It's I don't know. He was, I mean, just by looking at this match and the crowd reaction, you could say he could, carry a territory based on that kind of interest or popularity. But it was a different time. There wasn't, the spots. I mean, Hogan wasn't going anywhere. They got a lot of mileage out of him, I think, with Piper as a babyface. So, yeah, I think it ended up just about right for Orndorff, actually.
Yeah, it's unfortunately there's really nothing you can do about it. You're not gonna, you weren't gonna give him the world title, but it's. Right. I wonder how long term they thought though, Kelly. I know long term booking is one thing, but I I wonder how much long term they thought creating a babyface in the mid '85 to go out a year. Well, we'll get more into it when we get to the summertime, but I'm curious how long term we think they went thinking what they were going to do with Orndorff. Because right now he's pretty over. But, you know. Next up, speaking of over, we have an incredibly over heel, and still a guy that you almost don't believe actually had a run in the WWF because he just seems so un-WWF-like. But he just adds so much to a show, and he takes on one of our kind of he's a jobber, but I mean, in some of the Cindies he's been, and even on primetime, he's been pretty popular, and he's gotten some wins. But this one's an interesting one, JR. Who do we got?
I'm sure you're talking about Mr. McGhee.
Indeed.
Okay, there you go. We do have Scott McGhee taking on Terry Funk, I believe is the guy you probably were talking about. And yes, Terry Funk coming off his big red-hot 90s main event title match where he goes up against the always feisty McGhee, who I thought looked like Rod Stewart. Did you guys agree?
He absolutely did, but that's what I was talking about. Well, Funk was obviously the heel I was talking about, but I feel like we've seen some Scott McGhee stuff, but I'll get to my comments in a minute. But that's what I meant, Scott McGhee.
All right, well, I got all twisted around. I was too busy singing Maggie May, thinking about Rod Stewart here.
Something to believe.
Funk has his usual, tussle with Mel Phillips and then slaps McGhee, but McGhee slaps him back as the bell sounds. Funk lands some jabs to take over and then stole his daddy's cue, made a living out of playing pool, chops and clubs away. Jesse puts over Jimmy Hart's musical background in the hit song with the Gentrys. As McGhee turns the tide with a hard flurry of punches to the chest, Funk bails to gather his thoughts, and when he heads back in, where McGhee alternates slamming and punching him, Funk lands a shot but whiffs on an elbow drop and gets slammed again. McGhee shoots Funk hard into the corner, leading Funk to flip over and out to the floor where he favors his knee. Funk comes back and looks to bait in McGhee, but Scott grabs a side headlock. Funk breaks the hold and then buries the knee to the gut and gut right to work. McGhee gets knocked outside and suplexed back in by Funk, who gets a 2 count. Funk lands a pair of shoulder blocks, but McGhee sneaks a roll-up for 2. Funk recovers with a headbutt, but both men collide in the ring and then fight against the ropes. McGhee gets distracted by Hart and scoots out of the ring and chases him around, but Funk ambushes him as he comes back in and grabs a chin lock, using his wrist tape to choke McGhee. McGhee works free and heats up again, ramming Funk into the corner over and over as the crowd rallies him on. McGhee steps back and charges hard, but Funk dodges him and careens into the corner. Funk goes up top and gets a sunset flip, but McGhee turns it into a roll-up for 2. Funk gets a side suplex, and McGhee counters with one of his own. McGhee heads up top and tries for a dive, but Funk knees him in the head on the way down for the win. Funk brands McGhee after the match, but McGhee slips free and grabs a chair to clean house. The finish was a little fucked up, but I thought it was a really good match. Funk is red hot in the ring right now, and McGhee showed tons of energy out there, and I thought it led into a pretty exciting match. The offense kept flowing, had some good teases going into the finish. The crowd has been tremendous. They stayed with this one the whole way through. I went 3 stars on this, guy, so I really dug it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's one of my kind of sneaky favorite matches we've watched so far, and I'm just kind of drinking the Funk Kool-Aid at this point, and that might be a little too high, but I thought the crowd was super into it, and I thought Funk has been great, and I was kind of impressed by McGhee here overall. So pretty good in my eyes. Kelly, we say you.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I thought I'd be the high vote on this one. I went 2.5 stars. I really enjoyed this. I love Terry Funk. He's one of my all-time favorites. And, of course he makes someone like McGhee, who is pretty low on the totem pole, look great, look like a star, in fact. And the crowd gets behind him. Maybe I went too low on this, actually, because this was I'd never seen this match before, and this one grabbed me. McGhee gets a couple great near falls that totally are believable. Well, I don't know if believable's maybe the right word, but they were so close, and Funk sold it so well and timed it perfectly. But yeah, I mean, you kind of like, of course, we're hardcore fans. We know all the, how great Funk is. He's not going to lose this match. But if you see it through different eyes as a fan watching it live at the time, doesn't really know a lot about Funk, you would have totally bought that McGhee could win this match based on the work and based on how it all went. It was done that well. What has McGhee done other than this? I mean, he's really, he's of the same sort of ilk as Paul Roma and Jim Powers and even Rick McGraw. He's definitely that kind of Not, of course, the bottom of the barrel, but, pretty close to being almost a lower mid-carder, I guess you could say. Had a pretty good look, but a little small. But, yeah, and I like the finish. I like how Funk just got the knee up. When McGhee he got a little too, he was a little too optimistic on what he could do, took a big dive off the top rope, and Funk, the veteran, made him pay for it with the knee and then a pin. That was, I thought, a pretty good finish. And, yeah, I went 2.5, but, yeah, maybe I should have went a little higher. But this was a really good match.
Except he didn't have the hair. If his hair was a little blonder, I think it'd have been all right.
Almost.
I thought this match was tremendous. I gave it 3 stars, like you did, JR. It was really tremendous, and I was talking about Scott McGhee. We've seen Scott McGhee matches, and he's really showed up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's brought the goods, whatever role he needs to be in. He's really done a good job. He's in good shape. He's a pretty solid wrestler, and Funk is just. I mean, he's a freak of nature in this World Wrestling Federation landscape. That he's not like. He's shoving. Maybe Piper's the only other one that kind of has that license to shove regular people around.
Yeah.
No other heel gets to do that. So I was looking forward to this combination, and it really went at it. I was very impressed. He brought a little spunk to it. He had no problem. I think legitimately he was not even scared of Funk. I think a lot of probably these jobbers are maybe a little intimidated by a guy like him in the ring. McGee's like, fuck it, he's gonna haul off on me. Fuck it, I'm hauling off on him. If I'm going to have to eat the pin here, I'm going to break off a piece. And he did. And 9:44, pretty good length. I mean, we had to watch 4 minutes of Ted Arcidi fumbling around like a coke fiend. Here you got almost 10 minutes of pretty solid work between two different kinds of guys. A young guy with good, solid basics of the ring, with a guy who had it, but kind of has graduated to a different kind of worker, a brawler, kind of a sociopath, I guess you could say. And you put together a pretty good combination. So I was very impressed. And as much as I like Scott McGhee, it's a better match than I thought it was going to end up being. And I don't think we ever thought, JR, we'd give Scott McGhee a 3-star match, but it really did. I mean, obviously Funk did a hell of a lot. It was really good, and the crowd was into it. Crowd was behind.
They've been into everything, but yeah, they were really into this. Funk has just a great pacing as a heel in this run, WWF, and his matches are very unformulaic. They're all over the place, which makes it cool. 1 minute he's punching, the next minute he's getting tumbled out to the floor. He's just constant movement. They never really get boring. I think it's a big part of it. There's always constant movement. Very rarely does he work any kind of rest hold, like ever. You never really see one. His rest holds are knocking a guy to the floor and then punching him in the face. that's stuff like that. So it's that keeps him very varied and very fun to watch.
Yeah, and this did it. I mean, I was very impressed. It was a good guy in that enhancement pool to put in with Funk. It worked out great. But Funk does get the win at 9:44, coming off that almost win that he had on Saturday Night's Main Event against Hogan, and this was a good kind of a good rebound win for him against a pretty decent opponent. In that enhancement pool. Speaking of red nuclear heat from a crowd, boy, do we walk into this one. Woo! They had a great match last month here at the Garden, and we assume this one will be no different, JR, and that is
a huge rematch from last month when the Macho Man Randy Savage defeated the world champion Hulk Hogan by countout, looking to end his reign. Hogan is in the middle of a rugged stretch of contenders, really helping to jack up his credibility even more between Savage and Funk and everything else that's going on. Piper back at the Wrestling Classic. I mean, it's been a pretty hellacious couple months for him as far as big national TV matches go. He had the match in Denver with Funk, so it's been a lot of stuff going on when it comes to Hogan and really all these guys coming after his title. So Savage destroys flowers that a fan gave to Liz as Hogan marches out to a massive pop. Savage and Liz look tremendous in their matching royal blue. Savage attacks Hogan as he slides in the ring and mauls him with right hands and heads up top and lays into Hogan with an axe blow. Both men are in full garb as Savage is just a maniac, clawing and pounding on the champ, tearing his shirt off. Savage smashes Hogan with the belt off the top rope and then keeps whacking him with it as Gorilla bitches at the ref for allowing this to happen. The crowd is just flipping out as Hogan pulls himself to his feet and levels Savage as he yells at Liz. Jesse calls it a sucker punch as Hogan lays in a flurry and chokes away and then hits an atomic drop. Hogan mimics Savage and then crushes him with the right hand and chucks him to the floor as the crowd is just rabid. Hogan follows outside and puts on Savage's shades and then rams him shoulder first into the post. Jesse wants to DQ and Gorilla says the ref can't at this point after what happened earlier. Savage is bloodied as Hogan jabs away at the cut and then pitches Savage back in. Hogan runs across the ring and crushes him with a punch as he comes back in, and then the champ hoists him up with a choke and then drops him down to the mat. Savage is pouring blood now as Liz hops on the apron out of concern. Hogan walks over to Liz and blows her a kiss, and that allows Savage to yank him to the floor. Savage flies to the apron and lays in stiff kicks to Hogan and then runs him to the post. Savage follows with a big axe blow off the top rope and shoves Hogan back inside. He meets him with another axe handle off the top and then drops him with the elbow smash to the head. Savage heads up top and hits the flying elbow, but Hogan blows out of it at one and hulks up and no-sells as a flurry here as the crowd is going batshit. Hogan buries Savage with a hard clothesline in the corner and then prevents him from bailing out of the ring. Hogan hits him again with a running elbow and stops him from escaping, following with a big boot. Jesse thinks the ref should stop the match due to the blood loss as Hogan won't let Savage run and instead just chucks him to the floor. Hogan follows out and spikes Savage into the apron, but Liz blocks Hogan from spearing Savage into the post. Savage slides down Hogan's back and shoves Hogan into the post. Savage slides in the ring and again wins by countout. After the bell, Hogan batters Savage in the ring with running bear hugs into the corner. Wrestlers and officials charge the ring and break things up as the crowd is rocking. This was fucking awesome. The red-hot atmosphere, nonstop brawling in action, great bumping by both guys, just filled with hate and aggression across the board. A great finish with Savage stealing the win and earning another rematch. The only quibble to me is Hogan blowing out of the elbow, but you could argue he wasn't softened it up enough yet, and Savage hit it prematurely.
Yeah.
You know, if you have to explain it away. But amazing effort by both guys. Just a maniacal match. I went 4 stars on this. I could not believe how good this thing was. Just wild brawling, blood everywhere, and just a crazed atmosphere. The crowd is just out of control. So I will go with 4 stars here, Scott.
I was this close, JR, and I'm talking an inch or two this close to putting out the first 5-star match in the new Vintage Vault Refresh era. I gave it 4.5. 8.5 minutes of everything great about both these guys. And I'm not even going to say to the point where, we should have taken 8 minutes off of the fucking Iron Mike Sharp match. No. 8.5 was perfect.
Yep.
It's okay. If you can make, because I think I finally has figured out as we've been watching these, if you can do more with less, you're a Hall of Famer. And here, guys, you only got 8.5 minutes. Do something with it. And they did. They fucking did. And there were so many different dynamics here. I'm curious your thoughts on this, Kelly. For the first time, Elizabeth was actually being treated like an actual manager, like Jesse was, or Gorilla was getting pissed that she was in Hogan, that Hogan was in the way, she was in Hogan's way. And normally he cuts her slack because, Savage is a douche to her. But not on this night, though. She had to be, according to Gorilla, had to be called out. And little things like that, which normally you don't get often, and usually you don't see it on TV, national TV. Like you talk about, JR, things are different when you talk about the Cindies as compared to regionally. She was, she was kind of helping Savage as a heel more than she ever would do probably from here on out. Mm-hmm. And this is, again, as I mentioned earlier, you don't see nearly as much of the Jesse hate for Hogan as you do for any other babyface, and it shows here. They went crazy, and it busts fucking Savage open. We've seen a lot of that out of Hogan in the few times he has come to the Garden. And to take a heel and bust the fucking heel open, that's a lot for Hogan, particularly on not on a national stage, because you don't see that. I think that's what makes these shows so special, is you see different aspects of these guys that you normally won't see on a Saturday Night's Main Event. You will not see Hogan bust a heel open on Saturday Night's Main Event. No fucking way. Because Vince wouldn't be able to talk his way around it with his usual sugary shit. But with Gorilla and Jesse in a smaller setting, it's amazing. And these guys just figured it out against each. I don't know how, but somehow they figured it out, how to work with each other like that.
I would say because Randy Savage is fucking awesome. And
He is fucking awesome.
And Hogan was pretty awesome at this point, too. So, I mean, I think it's just two guys that get the business and know the importance of just going out there. And, you know, I'd rather have a crazed 8-minute match than like a 15 or 20-minute, you know, match that may have a better build to the finish, but like is slower in the middle. Like, to me, this 8-minute sprint is just phenomenal, the way they did it.
Yeah, I mean, it was ridiculous. I was literally this close to 5 stars, and who knows? I mean, if they have a third match, wink, wink, maybe it could be. Kelly?
Yeah, I went 4 stars. Love this match. I've seen it, you know, several times now, dating back to probably 1987-ish, the first time, because it was on one of the best of the WWF tapes. I remember clearly watching this around 1997-98, like the height of the Attitude Era, late at night. I had some friends over, and I remember popping this on, and we all marked out for it then. It's just that good.
You made them say, "Oh."
Yeah.
Hey, Savage!
Yeah, it's one of my all-time favorite Hogan matches, for sure. Maybe it's close to being number one for me. And Savage is so awesome in this. It has blood. It has the brawling, like the brawl right off the bat, where they don't even bother taking off the robe, or Savage doesn't take off his robe. Hogan doesn't get his shirt off. Savage actually rips it off, which was rare. That Hogan didn't even get to tear it off himself. And then Hogan gets Savage's sunglasses and puts them on. That was a great spot, and wore them actually for a few minutes later. There was the feeling like total out of control. You never, couldn't tell what was going to happen. Scott, that's a great point about Elizabeth being, more heelish than normal or ever. Like she really, like the story was like this was for the title. She wanted her man to win, and she would, she was a manager. People forget that she wasn't just a valet; she was actually a manager. So she was there to help Randy win, and she tried this evening, big time. And and of course the crowd. This was the match everyone came to see. Everyone was standing. Not a second of silence or anything. It was just nonstop heat, nonstop cheering. Hogan at his peak, Savage arguably at his peak too, or near his peak. This is great pro wrestling right here. And it built on the previous match so well, because Hogan got busted open in that one, and then now Savage gets busted open in this one. And we still have one more to go, and the pull apart at the end with wrestlers coming out, like just everything, and nonstop action, no downtime. Like Hogan, so many people, of course, will even to this day still criticize him. Oh, he couldn't work, he couldn't do this, he couldn't do that. I mean, come on, Hogan in the '80s was incredible.
Yep.
He was so good at what he did. He had great talent to work against him, but still, I mean, he was a master. He had the crowd in the palm of his hand. He could bring them up, bring them down, and could go with the best of them. And this is proof. This was just an all-time classic in my opinion. I loved this one.
It's amazing too the roster depth they had at this point. I mean,
yeah.
We talked about Orndorff, we talked about Piper, Stud, and now Savage and Hogan. There's so much depth, and Santana and Valentine, and it's amazing the quality of guys, because you always think about 80s WWF, and rightfully so at times. You think about just boring long matches. That NWA was a work rate promotion. And Jim Crockett, they had all the guys that put on the great wrestling matches. Well, you think of the depth of the roster. I mean, even a guy like Adrian Adonis, who almost at times is like an afterthought at this point. He's a high class worker too. Like he was tremendous, and you just think of all the guys they have up and down this card. It's just it's pretty crazy.
It was an all-star team.
Point.
Yeah, they took
the Bulldogs,
all the best
Bret Hart. I mean, Jesus, it's like nonstop.
Stampedere's best guys.
Right.
They took JYD from Mid-South. They took all the AWA's best guys. They took Piper from the Carolinas, Valentine from the Carolinas. They had an all-star team of talent. And yeah, it was still in the WWF structure where you didn't have the top to bottom card with every match being hot and having a feud behind it and everything like you had in Crockett. But the big matches, they always delivered, and the heat was great, and the performers were amazing.
So I think it's a good time to take a break and kind of soak in this incredible match before we get to some of the trash, because there is a couple of stinkers as we come back out of the break. But this is the intermission that the show had. But guys, this show's been fantastic so far. I mean, we've had other than Ted Arcidi, I think every match has had something, and that's there's going to be other not political, but other booking creative stuff that I think we're going to chew on the other side of the break. But yeah, we've got plenty more to come. Another title match and some other fun things. But first, Hogan and Savage will have words during the break. Because
you lured me away from home just to save you from being alone.
When it's in your face, really shows your age. But that don't worry me none. In my eyes, you're everything. I laughed at all of your jokes. My love, you didn't need to coax. Oh, Maggie, I couldn't have tried anymore.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, pro wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly here. I want to make sure you are all subscribed to all the great feeds here at Place to Be Nation. It's really easy to do. Just head to iTunes or your preferred podcatcher app today and search and subscribe to the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, which of course includes the full archives of the Kevin Kelly Show, the Place to Be Nation pod feed, and the Pro Wrestling Only feed. Subscribe, listen, and then rate us and leave feedback today. And be sure to give Justin your true thoughts. I mean, don't hold back. After all, he is kind of a jerk. Just listen to Scott.
Place to Be Nation's JT Rosero here, and I want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlayStation.com, and we now offer them to you on two great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, you can check out Scott Criscolo and me on the Mothership, the Place to Be podcast, with our famous Vintage Vault pay-per-view reviews. PTBN also covers current day wrestling with Clotheslines and Headlines, Main Event, Lucha Afterground, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction shows. And we live wrestling's past with our monthly pay-per-view rewind series led by Ben Morse. The Our Vantage Point podcast, which features a potpourri-style look at wrestling history, and Survey Says, a fun look back at the good, bad, and ugly of WCW. And on our very popular Place to Be Nation Pop podcast feed, we offer such great shows as the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, Rank and File, PTBN Dadcast, NBA Team, and Lucha Undead, as well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans with hard-traveling fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversations, Geek and Sassy, and the Imaginary Stories. You can find all these current shows plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to both feeds on iTunes. And while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All these shows, plus others available at PlayStation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus tournaments and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlayStation.com/Amazon when doing your online shopping, and download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Bonehead's Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, thehistoryofwrestling.com, and Scott Keith's blog of Doom. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
The Pro Wrestling Only Podcast Network. Subscribe on iTunes or on Android with your favorite podcast app. Established in 2013, the Pro Wrestling Only Podcast Network is committed to providing unique takes on the rich and diverse medium of professional wrestling, focusing on its history and global impact, but also exploring the vibrant contemporary scene. The roll call includes Space City, an NWA on-demand podcast, This Week in Wrestling, Stacey and Elliott's Bogus Journey, the Super Apuestas podcast, the Military Industrial Suplex, Strong Style History, Pure Paris, and Psychology is Dead. Also, from the archives, the full catalog of great shows that provided a fresh look at classic wrestling, including Where the Big Boys Play, Titans of Wrestling, Tag Teams Back Again, Letters from Kayfabe, Wrestling Culture, Pro Wrestling Super Show, Goodwill Wrestling, and many, many others. The Pro Wrestling Only Podcast Network. Only the best.
Hey, this is Scott Keith, the former net cop. You're listening to the Place to Be Podcast.
And I never thought I'd feel this way. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm glad I got the chance.
All right, Nation, we are back looking at the January 1986 Madison Square Garden house show here on tonight's Vintage Vault. Myself, Scott, and Kelly in the house. And, today I was sitting there at work thinking, God, I just want this day to end. I want to get home, see the kids, put them to bed, settle in, do a little Place to Be podcast action with my boys because, Scott, that's what friends are for. And you guys are my friends talking wrestling here each and every Monday night. And I'm going to turn things over to you right now for our Pulp Culture Corner.
Keep smiling, keep shining.
Keep puking in that fucking bathroom.
So that was our number one. Song that came out the previous Saturday, which was January 25th, 1986. It was Dion and Friends. The Friends were it was Dionne Warwick, Elton John, Stevie Wonder. Why am I blanking?
Elvis.
Elvis. I'm gonna bring my co-producer in. Nope, I can't think of who it is now. There was a fourth person. James Ingram, I think, was on it as well.
You will be there. You will be there. All right, I'll look it up. Keep going.
Okay. Gladys Knight. She was the other one.
Yes.
Gladys Knight. So thank you. Anyway.
Our buddy Rod Stewart was on vocals too, by the way.
Was he? There you go. So there's probably a bunch of. Anyway, I remember that song was specifically meant for.
All right, here's the person. Hang on. So let me get the whole thing. So, so it was first recorded by Rod Stewart for the soundtrack for the film Night Shift in 1982. So he actually sang on the original. It was
really?
his. And then Dion did a cover with her friends, and that was Elton on vocals, keyboards, and synth. Gladys Knight on vocals, Stevie Wonder on a bunch of shit, Dean Parks and Paulino DaCosta on percussion. So there you go. But it was originally Rod. It's a Rod Stewart night, guys. It's a Rod Stewart
There
night.
it is. The Rod. Which means, JR, guess what's no longer your number one song?
White Knights?
Your pal, yeah. White Knights, Say You, Say Me, got bumped down to number 2. No longer number 1. At number 3, from one of the greatest soundtracks of all time, a little Burning Heart by Survivor, from the awesome Rocky IV soundtrack, JR. One of many great cuts on that album. Talk to Me by Stevie Nicks at number 4. I'm Your Man by Wham. I'm just going to leave it at that. That's at number 5. At number 6, My Hometown by Bruce Springsteen from Born in the USA. Walk of Life by Dire Straits at number 7, their second hit off the Brothers in Arms album after their first great hit, which we talked about last year. I Miss You by Climax at number 8. A Little Party All the Time by Eddie Murphy dropped many spots to number 9.
And quick.
Yes.
Yeah.
A movie, a song by Paul McCartney made number 10 for a movie that probably will come out later in the year, Spies Like Us, which was a tremendously, hilariously bad movie with Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd that we'll talk about later on down the line. All right, JR. Movie-wise, quiet weekend the previous Friday. Only 2 movies came out after that cavalcade of crap that we threw out on you last week.
White Knights 2.
White Knights 2 and White Knights... No. So 2 movies came out the previous Friday, the 24th. This one, a thriller suspense film, made a paltry $24,562. It is called The Image Maker.
Okay. Is that a Adobe product?
Exactly, yes.
Let's see here. The Image Makers or Image Maker? No.
No image maker? Image, one word.
Image maker is one word?
The image maker, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Image maker is one word. At least on my...
But it's not the image makers, is it? It's maker, singular?
It's maker, singular. Yes, singular.
Yeah, it's not on here.
No? All right.
You've broken Wikipedia.
Well, yeah, it only made 24,000 anyway. All right. And the number one movie that weekend, which I kind of remember as a kid, because I remember being on
I'm going to ask for it to be created through Wikipedia, by the way.
There you go, yes. Oh, God. It's funny that we found all those bad fucking foreign films that made like $8 with you trying to say all those fine German, Spanish, fucking Israeli names or whatever. Meanwhile, this isn't on here. Anyway, so the number one movie that week, it made $4,678,892. It was a comedy called My Chauffeur.
This one Triple H, wasn't it?
No. No. That was Chaperone. It was different.
Same thing. 1986 comedy starring Deborah Foreman, Sam J. Jones, Howard Hessman, and E.J. Marshall. Casey Meadows, a free-spirited young woman working as a dishwasher at an upscale restaurant. One day she receives a hand-delivered job offer as a driver for Brentwood Limousine Service. The company manager, McBride, is appalled at Casey's young, brash presence and the fact that she is a woman in an all-male establishment. McBride soon learns that Mr. Witherspoon, the company owner, personally handpicked her and offered her the letter of employment. So, there we go. Howard Hesseman taking a break from head of the class. I don't have that started yet.
86? Maybe? Maybe it was the first season?
Yeah, close.
Yeah, pretty close first season. KRP had been gone for a few years at that point, and he doesn't hop onto... They don't do the shitty sequel till the 90s. 86 to 90
was head of the class. So maybe this movie role got him the gig. Penn Jillette, Penn and
I'm sure
Teller.
the season started in fall, so...
Penn and Teller were in this. So there you go. It was Bone and Abdul. Julius Harris, Laurie Main, Vance Colvig, Robin Anton. That's about it.
Interesting. All right. So there you go. Not much left
Foster
to
as LaRue.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Zippity-doo, my chauffeur! All right. The 1985 NFL season is over because one day before on that Sunday from the Louisiana Superdome in New Orleans was Super Bowl 20. And sorry, Pete, you're not on the show tonight. Kelly can cheer for you, even though he could care less. But the Chicago Bears conclude their epic 18-1 season with a nice 46-10 thrashing of the Cinderella New England Patriots.
Talk about cheating.
Patriots were up 3-0 in this game, and then proceeded to give up.
Sounds familiar, huh?
And then proceeded to give up 43 points in a row. So,
oh wow!
Don't say blowing a 31-0 lead, whoever the hell it was.
So there you go. So your world champions of professional football, Mr. Ditka, Mr. Buddy Ryan, and the Chicago Bears. Your MVP was Richard Dent. Of course, it would have had to be somebody from that 46 defense. So there you go. The 1985 NFL season is complete. Your Chicago Bears are your world champions. The up-to-date AP Top 10 in college basketball will come out the next day. Your top 10 quickly. From 1 to 10, North Carolina, Memphis, Georgia Tech, Kansas, Duke, Oklahoma, St. John's, Kentucky, and Michigan, and UNLV. And number 10. The NBA, just 5 games, but really nothing crazy. The only thing of note, one of the greatest players in history, the Iceman, George Gervin, who of course spent most of his career with the San Antonio Spurs. He was in the twilight of his career at this point. Scored 45 points for the Chicago Bulls, but they lose 124-116 to the Dallas Mavericks. So not much left in the NFL or in the NBA. Celtics were in first place in their division. Let me get a quick look at that again. Celtics leading the Atlantic at 33-8. The Bucks lead the Central at 31-15. Rockets lead the West at 30-14, and the Lakers led the Pacific at 32-10. In the NHL, your Leafs, Kelly, were off on this evening.
My Leafs.
But are you a Flames fan?
Oh, I'm a big-time Flames fan.
Oh, you were a Flames fan. I always thought you were a Leafs fan.
No, that's Stephen Graham.
Oh, well. And then nobody
losers
really cares.
Losers.
You'd be happy to know your Flames with a victory on this evening. At home at the Saddle Dome, they beat the Kings 6-3. JR, our two Northeast stalwarts, the Whale and the Bruins, played at the Garden with the Bruins winning 6-3. And the team that houses in our building that we're in tonight, JR, the New York Rangers, we're up. I know. I just like saying the arena that they were in, Le Colisée in Quebec City. They played a 6-6 tie against the Quebec Nordiques. And one more thing before we go. One of the most terrible American tragedies in history took place the following day on January 28th, 1986. I was in 7th grade. It was the Challenger disaster. At 11:39 in the morning, off the coast of Florida, from Cape Canaveral, it wasn't in the air that long, Challenger exploded. And it had, 7 people on it, including, of course, the first ever civilian on a spacecraft, Krista McAuliffe, who was a teacher, and then 6 other astronauts passed away. It would end up being an O-ring, which was some little piece of metal that connected a tube to a gas tank, and it came loose, and gas started to hit one of the tanks and ignited it and blew it up. While this was going on, of course, the Space Shuttle program had been going on for 5 years. Of course, Space Shuttle Columbia launched in 1981, and they were planning on they were in the midst of building a third Space Shuttle, Discovery, which was supposed to launch in June. Well, after what happened here, NASA suspended the Space Shuttle fleet for 32 months, and Discovery would not launch its initial flight until sometime in 1988. And I remember it was a very sad day in American history. We lost the Space Shuttle Challenger. And, of course, eventually, and almost 20 years later, or a little less than 20 years later, Columbia would crash as well.
And then Ben Affleck would save the day.
And Ben Affleck would save the day. And as Steve Buscemi would say, none of them would have to pay their taxes. So there is your pop culture report for today, January 27th, 1986. All right, back from break. I feel terrible, but I mean, you can't. Unfortunately, it can't be ignored. But we're trying to get some happy thoughts in. The Patriots lost by 36 points. That makes you smile.
Sure.
So
it was a bigger disaster. No, I'm looking. So Jesse Ventura is at ringside chatting with Blackjack Lanza. Lanza semi-retired, is in PR and the WWF PR wing, the newest member of the executive end of the World Wrestling Federation. Lanza puts over the WWF and calls Jesse's attire ridiculous. They take some jabs at each other, and then Jesse says he tells it like it is, and he remembers when Blackjack got down and dirty. Lanza says he was asked to come out here, but he doesn't want to sit here and talk all night long dealing with Jesse. Jesse says someday he'll get Blackjack in the body shop and he'll put him in his place. Any quick comments on that thing there?
I thought it was pretty cool. Blackjack Lanza wasn't taking any shit from him. He's probably still in moderately decent working shape, so it was kind of a cool, fun little back and forth talk in there. So I enjoyed it. What'd you think, Kelly? That was pretty cool.
Yeah, two AEWA guys who would have, interacted quite a bit back in the day. That was interesting. Lanza, very subdued compared to his usual heel persona here.
Blackjack Lanza. All right, Jesse then goes backstage, talks to the Dream Team. The champs will be defending against the British Bulldogs tonight, and we'll talk about the attire one moment. Johnny V says they're not nervous at all. Jesse asks Hammer about the high flying of the Bulldogs, and Hammer says he flew around today, too, on a plane in from Tampa, and he guarantees a win. Besides that great line from Valentine, do we want to mention it all? Brutus Beefcake's beautiful, luxurious, massive fur coat. Yeah. It looks like they killed like 7 foxes to build this thing. Any thoughts on that, Kelly?
Wow. Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, he probably, he had a pretty good year in 1985, so he decided to treat himself to a very outrageous fur coat, probably from somewhere in Manhattan. And he looked actually like $1 million. Wow, that's how you dress, when you're a star, when you're a champion. He came off like a big time star with that fur coat. It's funny that he didn't wear it ever again, or I don't know if he did. Definitely, I don't recall him wearing it too often.
Not making any friends with PETA, that's for sure.
It was tremendous. And Valentine there with his slacks and no shirt, like his wife was going to come and oil him again, like in that TNT segment. So it was pretty awesome. They've been awesome as a heel. This was a great booking decision to give these guys the straps. They're just fantastic.
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic. So,
all right, let's head back to the ring for our next match. That's between Pedro Morales and Moondog Spot. And for some reason, the graphics says Spot Moondog, which I thought was weird. Morales is back to the ambling around the mid-card after his dalliance for the tag titles at the end of the year. We haven't seen Spot MSG since September, so been a while for him. And Jesse says Morales is the WWF's official representative to Egypt. And then Gorilla kind of laughs at that, like he breaks up Gorilla. And do you know anything about that, Kelly? Is that like some kind of inside joke about Morales and Egypt for some reason?
I have no idea. It's obviously an inside joke, but I'm not in on the inside joke.
It was so random. And then Gorilla makes his comments about the bone, as always. Jesse asks Gorilla if he's ever taken a banana into the ring. Spot keeps scratching his head in a funny bit, and Jesse says he doesn't look any worse than the Hillbillies. They finally lock up, and Gorilla reminds us that WrestleMania 2, again, is coming on April 7th. Spot grabs a side headlock and plants Pedro with a shoulder block. Pedro comes back with a hip lock and then into a side headlock and grabs the beard, which the ref breaks up. Gorilla talks about Pedro's pride in the IC title, and Jesse says that tournament in Brazil must have been pretty weak if Pat Patterson was able to win it. Spot punches away and then flings Pedro over the top rope and hard to the floor. Spot suplexes Pedro back in for a near fall, and then chokes, stomps, and clubs away before biting Pedro, leading to Jesse saying he's more delicious than the bone. Spot gets two after a backdrop and then goes to a chinlock. Jesse talks about how to cheat a bit during pin covers based on where the ref is positioned as Pedro fights out of the hold and works Spot over against the ropes. Spot dodges a dropkick and gets a close near fall, but Morales comes back with a sunset flip for two. Pedro gets another roll-up and sneaks out the win from there. This was fine. Again, some good, some blah, about what you'd expect. I do think Morales has at least worked himself up into decent shape since his return. His matches have slowly improved here and there. I went 1 star on this. I mean, it is what it is. What do you think, Kelly?
Yeah, I didn't think too much of this. I gave it a half star. Back on Titans, I saw Morales wrestle Rex in 1981, so 5 years later I finally got to see him wrestle Spot. Also at MSG, of course. Yeah, finally I feel complete now. There was no heat. There was boring chants. This was in the death spot after Hogan and Savage, of course. I've mentioned this before. It's sad to see Pedro, who was once the king of MSG, or at least the number 2 guy behind Backlund for years, relegated to like a piss break match, basically,
right?
Where nobody cares. And yeah, I just, Pedro's Pedro. There's just he has some pretty good matches on his resume, but more often than not, he has a match like this that just goes nowhere. And, he just kind of goes through the motions. And this was one of those times. So, yeah. Not very good.
Nah, your time is 7:38. And, this is definitely a downer. I mean, nothing. In their defense, after what we just watched, I think anything would have been a downer unless you just did another big match or something. So,
yeah.
I feel bad. There's really nothing else you could do after what we just saw. The Patterson thing's funny. I don't know why that's a constant rib, but I mean, that must have been a weak tournament that Pat Patterson won. It's like, what the fuck was that about? You don't even see Pat on camera much, so that was pretty funny. Otherwise, this isn't much, and I mean, unfortunately, Kelly, I don't know how far you could go with Pedro at this point. I mean, yeah, he's one of the greatest of all time, but at this point, Vince wasn't thinking like that, and I mean, Pedro was slowly getting there. I mean, he looked abysmal in some of those 85 matches, as we saw. I feel like he's finally in a groove here, but spotty. He usually gives you a decent 6 or 8 minutes, 6, 7, 8 minutes of something. What did I give this? Let me check my machine here. I mean, I gave it half a star. I mean, it was better than a dud, but I mean, I won't give it much more than that. But I'm going to give the match in general the benefit of the doubt, only because after what we just watched before the intermission, really nothing was gonna do it for anybody. So I'll give it a half star, and Pedro gets the win in 7:38. Next up, what the complete opposite of an incredible booking decision, like having Hogan and Savage wrestle again, or the awesomeness of Paul Orndorff. This, a whiff. JR.
For some reason, that's the theme song of Sivi Afi, real name Papalite Max Amada Toagaga, was born in Samoa in 1949. Raised in New Zealand, began amateur wrestling at an early age. He trained professionally by Steve Rickard and Peter Maivia and debuted in 1974 in New Zealand. 1978, toured the U.S., Japan, and Australia as well. Was a big hit in Hawaii, where he wrestled Ric Flair in 1985 for the NWA World title in front of 12,000 fans. Signed with the WWF in early 1986, is making his first appearance at MSG tonight, billed as Superfly Afi, cousin of Jimmy Snuka. Not the best idea. Good old Ron Shaw back again as his opponent, slated to battle this new hot comer, Supervise Sivi Afi, making his MSG debut with the weird Shaft theme music. It made no sense. It was an odd choice. Like, why not just use like Islander kind of music? Like the Shaft theme is odd.
Yeah, or the theme from Superfly.
Right.
I think maybe that's what they wanted and got it confused with Shaft. Maybe
It had to be what it was. It was definitely a Shaft theme. It was.
Yeah.
It's not like Shaft was like a new hot movie, right? I mean, it's not like they were like capitalizing on like this hot film. So weird. I also didn't realize Afi had been around that long and was that old. I thought he was like a youngster here. All right, so he gets the torch and traditional Islander gear, and Fink does not make anything better because he dives into the Superfly during the announcement, and the crowd goes insane because they definitely think it's Snuka. He's like, Superfly! Sivi Afi! You know, and he comes running out.
Yeah.
And the crowd is just completely deflated. Jesse wonders if he's related to Snuka. Afi does an extended dance sequence with fire, and then he disrobes, getting a big showcase here for the entrance. Jesse says hi to Phil and Vito in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Crowd chants, "We want Snuka," as the match finally gets underway. Afi takes Shaw down with a single leg takedown into a headlock, as Jesse's surprised that they know amateur wrestling. They in quotation marks know what he's referencing. Gorilla says Afi's theme music sounds familiar, but he can't figure out what it was. So I don't know if he realized it was the wrong thing or if he's just out to lunch. I don't know. Afi gets a roll up for 2 and then goes back to the headlock, and the crowd is just completely deflated. Afi gets a crossbody block for 2, follows with a monkey flip. Afi goes to the arm, but Shaw works out and catches him with an elbow. Shaw slams Afi down and drops a knee for 1 before going to a chin lock. Jesse puts over Shaw, saying he's a tough first MSG opponent. Shaw goes to the eyes, and it's a backbreaker for 2, but Afi blocks a pile driver with a backdrop. Afi lays in some shots, but Shaw goes to the eyes, and Afi looks completely gassed. He does a couple of drop downs, and he can barely get back up, and then he chops Shaw back down. The crowd is booing Afi's comeback as Afi hits a flying thrust for 2. He lays in a headbutt, leading to some hard head references, as usual, from Gorilla and Jesse. Afi gets a high cross body for the win. This was so rough to watch, and just a really fucking stupid idea. The crowd just boos Afi out of the building, and the WF did him no favors, basically having him replace Snuka. The match sucked, all strikes with no flair to it, and not a good start for CV and a Shaft theme. I went a half star just because I felt bad for them, but only because he was given no chance to get over at all. Just buried out of the gate, and the Fink Superfly entrance, intro was just awful. Like it just set them up for such disappointment when he comes out. What'd you think, Scott, of Sivi Afi?
I gave it a half star, and if I was him, I'd have just walked into Vince's office and said, "I quit. I quit. I'm going back, and I'm just going to go back to Samoa or wherever the fuck I'm from, or he's probably from Cleveland or something, or Cincinnati or whatever." That was the worst thing you could possibly do to somebody. Is pretty much try to snow the audience over by giving a beloved superstar, stealing his nickname and giving it to, and the minute, you know what did it for me? If you looked very closely, he walks up the ramp, you hear the fucking Shaft music, he comes up with the thing, and then he has this look like, where do I go now? Like he stops in front of the ring, and he's like looking around like, where do I go? Do I have this thing burning in my hand? What am I doing? He's fucking clueless.
Macho Man, Ron Shaw,
Hulk Henderson.
Yeah, exactly, yes. It's like Justin Zyger Chung Lee. Like, I don't know. It was terrible.
McGhee.
Andre McGhee. I mean, it was just an absolutely terrible idea. I don't know I mean, well, it was Vince. I'm not going to fucking pretend that it was somebody else's idea. I'm sure he was pissed at Snuka when he left, or who knows what other legal shit was going on, because by this point, obviously, Snuka was in the AWA feuding with Colonel De Beers. But whoever thought this was a good idea should really have gotten smacked in the head. I don't know if they were taking some of Ted Arcidi's meds, but I don't know. This was a disaster from the beginning. And then again, he's not even he's fucking blown up. I mean, he could have gotten the fucking Rick McGraw Puffy Award, because, I mean, he was bloated, and it was bad. It was just really bad. And the one saving thing here, if they really wanted to make a big deal out of this, I'm curious your thoughts on this, Kelly. Ron Shaw should have gotten no offense in. Or just put another guy in there that could have just eaten the pit, like a Paul Christie or one of those legendary mid-'80s jobbers. Mario Mancini. Oh, no, he's a babyface. Oh, some fucking scrub.
Honestly, I don't think it would have mattered. I mean, I don't care if he won this in 30 seconds. I mean, I guess the only thing would be get him out of there. But it's him getting worked over, to me, wouldn't have mattered if he squashed a guy in 5 minutes or got some, like, they did not want anything to do with him. This was the worst place possible to debut this guy with that name. Yep. And it was just wicked fucking stupid. I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't think, no matter how this match went, it could have been, whatever, Stone Cold and Rock WrestleMania 17 level. They did not want anything to do with this guy. They hated him.
No, it was just abysmal and a terrible idea. And you've destroyed this guy forever. He'll end up being in Ron. He'll be tag teaming with Ron Shaw or whatever eventually. Cause that's where he's going to go. Kelly.
Oh yeah, no. This is one of the epic disasters of the era for WWF. The Finks just introduction. What were they thinking?
I don't know.
Obvious. I maybe it was a big rib on this guy. Or I don't know.
No, I think they just thought it would work. I think they were just cocky about it. I don't know why they thought it would work, but
yeah, no, it's true. Post WrestleMania, Vince, and with NBC and Saturday Night's Main Event, Vince was riding pretty high and thought he could turn anything into gold. But yeah, Superfly, one of the most beloved guys of the early 80s, especially in New York. All his signature moments in MSG, the jump off the cage twice, and now you got this pretender. Oh, what a disaster. The crowd, just totally turns on it, chanting, "We want Snuka," shitting all over him. And yeah, like you guys said, just to make matters worse, Afi is not very good. And Ron Shaw is unfortunately, not a very good jobber. He's the master of the headlock, chin lock, just dull, very dull.
Still coming back from that broken leg, as we heard earlier.
You're right. Yeah, that really just ruined his career, evidently. And the crossbody was sloppy too. It just he kind of half hit him, and it just looked like a rookie attempting a crossbody.
I think he just had no legs. I mean, I think he looked gassed.
Yeah,
through.
Exactly.
Yeah, but he had nothing. I mean, on those drop downs, he could barely get back up. None of this was good. None of this was good.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't good. I gave it a dud. And
I'm changing mine to a dud. I've talked my way into it.
It has to be a dud. Like you can't give any kind of star to this thing.
Yeah, no, I changed my mind.
Total disaster. And for trivia's sake, this was Ron Shaw's last MSG match. He first wrestled there in 1981.
Well, why does he get punished? Wasn't his fault.
Wait, did you say it was his last or first?
His last.
Okay,
MSG
I was gonna say I think it was his first.
Yeah,
what is he? Poor bastard. That sucks.
You got the shaft, as you may say.
He got the shaft.
Oh.
I thought fucking Jim from American Pie was about to come out when that music hit.
So bad.
Oh, here comes Superfly Stifler.
Oh God, just not good whatsoever. All right, let's move on from this mess and move on to the next mess, which is bad in other ways.
We have a lot of music we can end the show with this week.
I know.
Stewart, Masterpiece, Shaft. JYD and Adrian Adonis going at it here, Scott. Fun match on paper between two of the hottest of 1985. Adonis, though, as we mentioned earlier, full-fledged in his adorable gimmick now, doused in pink and makeup and scarves and flowers. Jimmy Hart leads him out as Jesse hands Adonis a rose, which Gorilla mocks. The crowd is all over Adonis as he saunters around the ring. JYD gets a huge pop as he chugs out to grab them cakes. Adonis takes his time preening and disrobing before we finally get started after a long delay. Gorilla says you have to be tough to wear those kinds of clothes. Jimmy really plays a good role, I thought, with all this, the way he helps Adonis disrobe and prep. Adonis threatens to leave by JYD chases him down and tosses him in the ring, unloads with right hands. Gorilla says Adonis has gained 20 pounds. Jesse thinks he's up to 300 now. Adonis lands a sucker punch as the referee hooks JYD's hand to break them up in the corner. Adonis drops a splash as Gorilla says he knows how to use that extra weight very well. Jesse says none of the Adonis stuff happened until their team ended and he hooked up with Jimmy Hart. Adonis hammers away, but JYD eventually punches his way back into it and then lays in a headbutt and chokes away. The dog sends Adonis hard to the corner, leading to a 360 bump, and then takes him over with a backdrop. JYD grabs Adonis' hair and the ref comes over, but the dog chucks the ref across the ring and then smacks Adonis with a megaphone for a DQ. Weird, disjointed match. Never got going. Very disappointed. Adonis is great in this gimmick, but JYD just gave him nothing. This is a complete waste of time. I went half a star. I thought they should have just given Adonis a jobber here and let him squash him to get the new gimmick over. This just accomplished nothing. It made Adonis look like a goof, and JYD just looked out of it tonight. So this was disappointing. On paper, it looked like it may be a fun match, but in practice, it ended up being a bunch of nothing. Kelly?
Yeah, I totally agree. Half star. I think we've seen the last of good worker Adrian Adonis. I may be wrong, but it's funny. Like a switch has been flipped, basically. Like even on the last show in December, he was still, we talked about how he was still like Adrian, from the North-South connection with Murdoch. He was still working like that, and now, 1 month later, it's all gone. He already seems like a shell of himself.
I mean, his bumping stays, but yeah, the overall work, his offense and all that is what really suffers. Like, he's always a great bumper.
Yeah, but now there isn't the meat to it at all.
But there's a lot of meat.
There's the flab. Lots of flab and some good bumps, but that's about it. JYD probably also sliding into bad performer territory now. We're into 1986. The drugs start to take hold.
He looked out of it here. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he was under the influence on this night. He didn't look like he was with it.
No, it's probably that's probably very good chance of that being the case. Of course, the New York crowd serenaded Adrian with an awesome chant that in 2017 I won't mention, but we all know what it was.
Were you surprised how tolerant Jesse was of the gimmick? Like, it doesn't seem like Jesse at all to be, still supporting him. I mean, he makes the one comment about how he wasn't like this when they were teammates, but
right.
Jesse's profile seems to be the type of guy that would have been like just crapping on this and not wanting anything to do with it, but he gives him the rose and he still talks him up. I thought it was a good touch from, especially with this time period when it would have been very easy. Like they actually haven't been too bad, him and Gorilla, about this whole thing. Like they've been pretty straight laced and understanding of the whole thing I thought maybe they would have buried it, which I know we're going to get to times where people do, but they've actually been surprisingly tolerant of this direction for Adrian Adonis.
Yeah, I mean, and he's still pushed as a top heel throughout the year, and of course later with Piper, they have a pretty big feud. So, and Jesse's a flamboyant guy too, so it sort of makes sense that he admires Adrian's new sense of style, perhaps. But yeah, this was just a total mess.
The highlight for me here, well, I wouldn't say a highlight, but you were talking, JR, about the whole Jesse being accepting of it and kind of going along with it. But, I mean, Gorilla was just drilling him. Like, how did you not know this was coming? And he's like, well, I don't know. I mean, he was, I wrestled with him. But you traveled with him. You stayed with him. Like, Gorilla, what are you implying? It's like, you wear feather boas. It's like, what? It's pretty much like Gorilla was trying to out Jesse. It was like, Jesus, Gorilla, chill out. We want to know the real details. It's like, good God. He's like so enamored with it. It was ridiculous. But yeah, the match was shit. 1985 would be such a hot year for JYD. Obviously, one of the most popular guys, maybe next to Hogan. But like I agree with you, Kelly. I think he met Ted Arcidi on this night at the Garden, and everything went right downhill after that. Because he's just a disaster here. They're kind of fumbling around again. It was kind of just as bad as George Wells and Iron Mike Sharp, just obviously on a more epic scale and with a smaller window. Let me see what your time is here. I think it's
short.
It was super short. I mean, there was so much stalling though. It was
3:20. Went 3:20. Yeah. And that's about 3:15 too long. No. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. And as for what you were saying, Kelly, about Adonis's work rate, I think the problem is his opponents, but who he ends up getting thrown in with over the next few months. But
yeah, that's true.
But I mean, he did go with the gimmick too. I agree with you on that in the sense that I think jumping into the gimmick kind of took the work rate out of it. But this is just not good. I gave it a half star just for breathing purposes. Speaking of breathing purposes, JR would hope this guy wouldn't anymore or have to ever watch any of his matches ever again. Fortunately, this one is super, super fast. A big sprint. JR, what do we got? Guys are blown up.
Good old buddy George Animal Steele taking on Barry O. A big pop for Steele, and this has ugly just written all over it on paper. Barry O's back for the first time since that mess with Jesse Ventura. Jesse says Lou Albano and Steele can blow their nose if their brains are made of dynamite, and just keeps shredding both guys. Steele does his usual nonsense act and chases O to the floor. Barry O comes back in, and Steele tosses him right back out and eats the turnbuckle. Barry slugs him from behind, but Steele quickly turns it around, bites the arm, and then gets the flying hammerlock for the win. Very stupid, but at least it was short. Steele just has nothing left. The crowd is kind of into him, and of course he's being set up for a push, which is obnoxious. Nothing interesting here at all. I went dud. Dud.
I agree. Did I give this? What did I give this? Oh, yeah, I gave it a dud as well. I thought I saw 3 stars, but that's another match. Yeah, this is trash. I don't know what the push is for, but we know what the push is for, but misguided. Kelly?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was short. I gave it a half star for being short. Because imagine if this went 10 minutes or something like that.
No.
Yeah, I maybe I'm wrong, but that would have been my third dud of the evening.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Embrace it.
There's plenty of good stuff to cover it, including what we have last. So it's quite all right.
I think I had about 3 or 4 half-star matches.
If Shaft worked with George Steele, I think that'd be pretty tremendous.
Yes. Yeah, not much to say at all.
Now, before we go to the main event, Fink lets us know about our next outing, which will be 3 weeks from tonight, February 17th. Superstars to appear. Tony Atlas. Lanny Poffo. King Tonga. And Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And a few matches have been booked. JR, here we go. The Hart Foundation will take on the Killer Bees. Pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
King Kong, here we go. Work rate extraordinaire right here. King Kong Bundy and Cousin Luke. No. JR is salivating over that one. Our the only real...
We take a 5-second shower, not a 5-second pin. Cousin Luke.
Yeah. You just jump in the hotel pool like they did in Tampa.
Ugh.
And Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik, the Foreign Legion, will be taking on Dan Spivey and Corporal Kirshner. Ooh, whatsoever, but who knows? And finally, in the final match of the trilogy, gentlemen, Hulk Hogan will once again defend the World Wrestling Federation Championship against the Macho Man Randy Savage, but this time it is a lumberjack match. The last time we had a great lumberjack match, which was almost a year to the month, maybe just short of a month, when the Hammer fought Tito in that lumberjack match, 2 weeks before WrestleMania, and that match was fucking incredible. So with these two, batting on the hatches. And finally, One more match, literally, as Fink said, just signed a few minutes ago. And, of course, a few minutes too late in JR's eyes, and pretty much for all of us. Adrian Adonis and George the Animal Steele. Woo!
Poor Adrian.
The minute he said that. Oh, God.
Adrian's getting the shaft in more ways than one. All right, main event time. Our tag team titles on the line as your champion, the Dream Team, taking on the British Bulldogs. Very strong main event. Bulldogs have worked their way up the card, earned this title match. Dream Team has been hot as well, come in a long way as champions. Jesse wonders why the Bulldogs even bothers to choose Lou Albano as a manager, and I wonder the same thing. Valentine lands a shot on the Kid to open up, but Kid comes right back and hammers Valentine and then loves him with a shoulder block and a headbutt for 2. Kid tags in Davey, who power slams Hammer for another near fall and then follows with a small package for 1. Hammer catches Davey with a jumping knee to the chest and tags in Beefcake. Davey grabs Brutus's arm and uses the power to really torque it. Beefcake finds a seam but whiffs on a leg drop. Davey grabs the arm. Beefcake traps him and tags in Hammer, who drops 3 hard elbows to the trapped Davey boy. Dynamite comes charging in and lays out both champs with headbutts, which pisses off Jesse. Hammer misses a falling punch, but Davey turns Hammer into a grapevine Boston Crab. Of course, otherwise it would be known as a Scorpion Deathlock someday. Beefcake breaks the hold. Hammer regains control, punishing the midsection and leg. Beefcake and Hammer quick tag while focusing on the leg, but Davey eventually blocks the figure 4 with a kick. Hammer levels Dynamite on the apron and is able to get the figure 4 on Davey, but Dynamite comes right in and breaks the hold of the leg drop. Beefcake tags in but can't stop the tag on the other end, and Dynamite cleans house on the champs as the crowd is all revved up. Dynamite gets a near fall on a backbreaker, but the ref was slow getting down. Dynamite gets another near fall, drawing Hammer in and then Davey as well, leading to a Pier 6 brawl that the Bulldogs dominate. Davey slams Dynamite on Beefcake, but the ref pushes Dynamite out, allowing Valentine to drop an elbow. Davey comes back in, and Dynamite gets a small package, but the ref again shoves out Davey. Johnny V comes in and rolls Beefcake on top for the sneaky win. Albano comes in to bitch at the ref, and Gorilla asks what he was doing around out there during all this. What was Albano doing out there? Really fun, hard-hitting match, fast-paced. But the referee was a mess, and I thought he really fucked up multiple times in this and really screwed up the ending. Made it all more confusing than it should have been, and I thought it hurt the match a bit. Good heel win for the champs, as always. They are far from done here with the Bulldogs, so I thought it looked fantastic out here. I went 2.5 stars, Kelly. How about you?
I went 2 stars. It was good. There was a lot of really good action, and the heat was really good too. And considering this was the last match of the night, this was an 11-match card.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was a long show. So usually they're pretty spent by this time. So it was good to see Heat still in the final slot. I mean, these two teams will have a lot better matches in the future between each other. But no, there was good stuff. I mean, you got a lot of good workers in this match. Valentine looked good. The Bulldogs, they were young and fresh at this time. And just, so fast and for, on a WWF show in 1986, they stood out so much just with their offense and style. And, for me, like, Beefcake was maybe in the ring a bit too much, and there was some sloppy stuff with him and Davey Boy at the beginning, so that brought it down a little bit for me. But Dynamite Kid had a good House of Fire that the crowd was totally into, and I think that the crowd was sensing perhaps a title change at that moment because they really got into it. And then, like you said, JR, the ref was the finish made him look like a total idiot. I hate when that happens too. Yeah. Like, there's no need to make the ref look like a total idiot like that.
I don't think he helped himself though. I don't think it was even just them doing it to him. He missed a couple spots throughout the match. He looked lost at times.
Yeah, and he probably was. This was probably still when they were using the Athletic Commission refs that often, had never even worked a wrestling card before and were thrown out there and then, really didn't know what the hell they were doing. And but it just the spots at the end just made him look like he had to be blind to not know what was going on. But good. But as I said, we'll see a lot better in the future between these two teams. But a decent first chapter between them.
I think so. The Bulldog come out to that. I think that would be
they could probably pull it off.
I'm the total opposite to Kelly. I gave it 3 stars. I think it was really good. I thought it was well paced. I thought they worked well together, back and forth. The ending was pretty bad, and the referee was just a disaster. I think he just lost control. I think it was legitimate, JR. I don't think it was planned that he'd be a fucking dope. I think he literally was a fucking dope. I think he just totally lost everything, had no idea what was going on. And I agree with Gorilla. Where the fuck was Albano, that fat fuck? Why didn't he go in and roll the small package back, a stupid asshole? I mean, I think the Bulldog should have turned on Lou and beat the shit. No, I'm kidding. But although I guess I wouldn't have minded. But you could tell the Bulldogs were the ones primed for something soon. It was just not on this night, but that was perfectly fine. They wrestled a fantastic match. Pretty good length of, what was the final tally? 7:46. Again, a good sprint. Everybody brought their work, well, I'll say this. Everybody brought their working boots, even if they were badly worked. They still brought their working boots in most cases. So the Dream Team, like you said, JR, plenty left in the tank. They're just fantastic right now. Mm-hmm. Fantastic heel team. Just as good as I would even say Adonis and Murdoch were when we were watching those TNTs. I mean, they were awesome, and I think the Dream Team has done just as good a job in a similar role. So I'm excited. I'm excited for what lays ahead for the Dream Team and the Bulldogs. I think more could come from them and be exceptional. So, all right. That was a fantastic show. And what's a fantastic show without plenty of awards?
Awards time. All right, let's do this quick. Match of the night, I think, is an easy layup across the board, and that is Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage for the second time.
No doubt. No doubt.
All right, our Cousin Junior Award for the worst match of the night. Now, there's a few candidates. Yes. I went with Sivi Afi versus Ron Shaw just because of what an epic disaster the whole thing was. I mean, I think you could argue the Arcidi match is probably technically worse, but I thought everything to do with Afi was so bad that, to me, it was the worst match of the night. What do you think, Kelly?
I agree. That was. I mean, I had 2 duds. I had that match, and I had the Arcidi Tiger Chung Lee match as a dud. But I went with Arcidi versus Lee. I thought that was. Technically, that was horrible. It was close, though. But, yeah, I went with Arcidi versus Lee.
Scott?
I go with you, JR. I do Sivi Afi and Ron Shaw just because it was just so booked, just so epically atrocious that just everything failed. From the minute he walked through the ramp till the very end. Just with that bad dancing he was doing at the end. Just every single minute of that entire segment was just unwatchable dreck. So I'm with you on that one.
All right, MVP, I went the cheap route this time. I dipped. I went Hulk Hogan and Savage. I don't think you can choose one or the other this time. They were both fantastic. They both played equal important roles in that match and were both tremendous. So, you guys agree or different take?
No, I definitely agree. You can't. They worked perfectly together, like Hogan and Piper would, and you can't give one the deal without letting the other have half the credit because they worked perfectly together. Kelly?
Well, I went with Savage last time, so to even things out, I went with Hogan this time. But no, I totally agree that it's pretty hard to separate. I mean, Hogan was, like I talked about earlier, he was on a pretty high level at this time. Just, at the peak of his career, peak of his popularity. So yeah, that's kind of the tiebreaker for me, I guess.
All right, the Gator Wolf for the worst wrestler, and here's where I graced Ted Arcidi with the championship. So I went Arcidi for the Gator Wolf. You guys agree?
Yeah, he does not belong. He does not belong in a wrestling ring ever.
No,
absolutely does not.
All right, best moment. I went with Sivi Afi's entrance. I went with Paul Orndorff. I went with a tie here, actually, again. But see if you guys went one way or the other. I could be swayed, probably. I went with Paul Orndorff's entrance, which, just because of the crowd, was, out of control. And also Savage's pre-match attack on Hogan, which was, a ton of fun, where he's just maniacally beating the shit out of him. What'd you have, Kelly?
No, that's what I went with. I went with Savage. The crazy start. Okay. Yeah, crazy start to the Hogan-Savage match.
All right, and Scott?
My favorite moment is Gorilla asking Jesse if he was gay, just like Adonis was. I'm gonna go with the Orndorff entrance too, because the crowd was just so into him, and that was what would turn out. I think we got to give Orndorff a lot of credit because he kind of set the night up with his entrance, and he got the crowd going. And so, I give it to Orndorff.
All right, our Junior Mr. Universe Award, the most juiced. I wanted to give an honorable mention to Orndorff, who was massive here too. But, I mean, it's forever Ted Arcidi. Whenever we're going to have him on, he is just through the roof juiced. You guys agree?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be his award eventually.
Yes,
for me, he got the triple. He got the triple crown. He was in the worst match. He was the Gator Wolf, and he was Junior Mr. Universe. So,
my God, now Tony Atlas is going to be here next month. If him and Arcidi, let's hope that's not the same. Well, they're both faces, so they can't be in the same match. Imagine if they were. Maybe that's a good tag team. Well, he's.
Oh my God!
The feds may just
Tony Atlas tag.
The feds may just be waiting right outside MSG for that one, just waiting it out. All right, overall grade. I went pretty high on this one of my highest on a house show. I went with a 6 out of 10. Obviously, an all-time class with Hogan and Savage, a couple of other fun matches. There was just enough dreck, though, to drag it down for me from being like an elite grade. The Sivi Afi stuff was unforgivable, and then the Arcidi and a couple other matches. But the Funk match I really liked. The main event was solid. Hogan Savage is amazing. So there's some really good stuff in here, plus the Orndorff pop. What'd you go with, Scott?
I'm going to actually use what you think is dreck and consider it even just as entertaining on an opposite level than the stuff that I graded. I'm giving this an 8.
Oh, wow.
I could watch this. I could watch this house show again and again because even the Sivi Afi stuff, as bad as it was just entertainingly bad. Just to see the crowd turn on it was fun to watch. The only thing that was real trash, and George Steele I can't count because it was only a minute, was for me just that George Wells Iron Mike Sharp match was just way too long. Otherwise, there was a little something in everything. Whether it was the awkward Adonis talk to the great title match to just everything. Everything was great tonight. Whether it was great because it was entertaining to me in a bad way or just because in Savage and Hogan's case they painted a Picasso. So this might be at this moment, one of my favorite house shows of all time. I give it an 8.
Kelly?
Wow. Yeah, I agree with you, JR. I give it a 6. My favorite of the MSG shows I've participated so far with you guys. Hogan Savage, yeah, that's an all-timer. And then we had multiple 2-star matches, which is something we hadn't had before. And yeah, like top to bottom, there was, like Scott said, like something, going on almost in every match, whether it be Terry Funk being great or the Sivi Afi debacle. At least we got a good laugh out of that. Ted Arcidi being the Triple Crown winner. Just it was
Ted Arcidi also being triple over the normal fucking hormone levels. That's
triple over a lot of things. Triple over light lines in his goatee.
Triple
and
bypass.
His beard.
Yep, and Jesse and Gorilla were fun on commentary too. It was I watched this in one sitting too, so that counts. Like usually I have to divide it into 2, sometimes 3. So this one I watched all the way through, and it was, 2.5 hours. So that's not always easy with these 85, 86 MSG shows.
It was a good one. All right, another show in the books, fellas. Great time as always. Scott, I believe you have main event coming this week, right? You want to promote that?
We do, yes. It's going to be a great main event. We will recap the last night in San Jose at Payback, and we, as I've been promoting on both Facebook and Twitter, we will be having a mailbag on Wednesday. So you got some time. Even if you're listening to this Tuesday morning, get your questions in at Place to Be Nation on the Facebook page, or send it to me on Twitter and hashtag MEM Mailbag, and we'll get the questions on Wednesday. We're going to have Steve Willie's with us. Johnny Reckless, I think, will be with us. It'll be a fun show. Looking forward to it.
Speaking of mailbag, of course, you can join myself and that chap called Alan, Inside Letters from Center Stage, opening up the plunder bucket of all the mail coming in from our listeners. The first 2 episodes have aired over the last 2 weeks. That'll come at you sometime late Thursday night, early Friday morning. Alan and myself, episode 3 coming this week as we, of course, explore the outer edges of the mothership, nostalgia mothership known as WCW. So we are looking forward to that. And, of course, we'll be back here next week looking at the February 86 show. Kelly, you'll be with us for that one, right?
Yep.
Excellent.
Looking forward to that. It'll be next Monday, so be sure to check out everything we have to offer at PlayStation.com. Subscribe to our iTunes feeds, Place to Be Wrestling, Place to Be Nation Wrestling, Place to Be Nation Pop, and Pro Wrestling Only. Rate us, leave feedback as well. Follow us on Twitter, Place number 2B Nation. Send us any feedback or mail you may have. And of course, if you're going shopping online, use PlayStation.com/Amazon. And download our free Vintage Vault and Refresh ebooks on the right-hand side of PlayStation.com as well. So everything there for you. One stop for your pop culture needs. For Kelly, for Scott, I'm Justin. We're out. We will talk to you a week from tonight. I am going to hit the sack with Maggie May. Talk to you later.
Maggie May's Shaft.
She's going to kick you in the head.
Busting out the exposition. Fully chopping haters, business all about the style of prisons. Our mission, they're the scary, no limit mercenary. No telling I better get because the worst of their red. I heard you making worry that this would loot. They intimidated by the round that a tank shoot. Tank dog salute. Every robbery is store, cause they know everything you know. Me more money, more. Still fiends, still want the greens, the cornbread and the cabbage. In your hood, reminding you bitches of who the baddest. Definitely the maddest. So the crime don't stick on my oven twice. And end it with 9. Get 'em. Make 'em say, na 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 na. Make 'em say, na 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 na. He gon' make you say, I'ma make you say, I'm not RB, but damn G's to move this motherfucking crowd. I stay on like ice with money, cause I like bitches hit nothing but tight bitches. Call me, I might hit you. Nigga, make 'em say, nah, nah, nah. Don't trip. Bust your shit, then after they say, nah, 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 nah. I hang with niggas, I do my thing with niggas. They wanna know if I gang bang, cause I hang with a whole gang of niggas. So when we get that bitch, better respect this a step quick. Cause I got a vicious right hand, but you know what? My left is quick, too. You the type of nigga that promotes violence. You might be right side, step in the club, say something, get that motherfucker start to fighting. Bad, bold, I'm cold, as you can see. BG, nigga, fuck my niggas out, on 3D. PC's the game, I spit, no limit soldiers off my back. I run these motherfucking true niggas, and nah, bet y'all make you say that.
We capitalize and monopolize on everything we see, keep this destroyed and cops. We got the industry locked, we can't be stopped. Too hot, check the spots that we got on Billboard. Tank instead of roadblocks, we fading all you hoes. Want some more? Then let's go. Stretch it out like elastic. Zip that ass up in plastic. Have your folks picking caskets. We drastic. Our tactics is homegrown in the ghetto. So feel the wrath of this sister. It's like you're fighting 10 niggas. Forget the baby voice. It's the biggest mama mia. The unladylike diva. Lyric old man either. Believer or steer. And get that ass embarrassed. If you're a decision maker, guaranteed you'll get carried away. So stay in your place when you hear mama speaking. Cannon spray, clear the way when you see the tank creeping.